Here we are with the Tuba Chats Thursday. Jarrett and I were just comparing notes prior to going live and realizing that the tuba world is amazingly well populated with really fine performers. Deciding which to play, we have already a long list of people that you're going to want to meet. But today we have a very special program. This is someone that really has taken the tuba world by storm, and it's Carol Jantsch, who is the principal tuba of the Philadelphia, the esteemed, renowned, cultured by Ormandy back in the day, Philadelphia Orchestra, known for its smooth, warm, beautiful sounds. So to have the tuba player that is part of that tradition is quite amazing. Jarrett, what do you think about today's enterprise?
I don't think we can go any higher from here. I think we've sort of, we can probably stop these tuba chats after this one. Just kidding. We have plenty other people to talk about and to.
So I'm Chuck, Canadian Brass, and my co-host is Jarrett McCourt, fine young tubist who is actually, turns out he's Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we knew that when we decided that you and I would co-host that. This is very important. Canadian, but you've played in New World Symphony Orchestra for several years. You're in the Winnipeg Symphony now, and you also play the Civic in Chicago and the opera. Is that correct?
Not the opera, just the Civic Orchestra.
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. But it's really great to have you doing these. We've had some wonderful responses to these, and Jarrett and I are actually putting these various chats together all in a row. We're going to have quite a historical document of tuba playing in the 2000s, looking backwards and looking forwards. Okay, Jarrett, introduce our guest today.
Yes, so you've already introduced her, but I'll let her in. I don't think I can say anything else about Carol. Everyone knows her as one of the finest living tuba players and a great source of inspiration for me. So here is Carol.
Ah, hi, Carol.
Connecting to audio.
Nice.
All right, did we do it?
Yeah, we did it.
All right.
Hi, Carol. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you guys. How's it going?
Excellent.
Good.
We're quarantined in our own. I'm quarantined in Toronto. I think, Jarrett, you somehow got down to Texas.
Yeah, it's warmer.
And where are you, Carol?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Nice. So how are the orchestra rehearsals going?
I've been on a lot of committee meetings, so I've gotten really fast at typing because I'm secretary.
Nice.
Now, wait a minute. That changed everything. We were going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the first female tuba player in a major symphony orchestra worldwide. First. And now you say you're a secretary. How did this happen?
Tread carefully, Chuck.
Yeah.
So a little bit about your background. It seemed to me, you and I might have met way back when. You're from Michigan.
I'm from Ohio, but I claim Michigan usually because I like it better. I went there. I went to Interlochen for high school and Michigan for college. So 7 years in Michigan makes me as much Michigan as Ohio, I guess.
So Interlochen would have been the point of convergence because I think we were there quite often.
I saw you live when I was 9 years old. So.
And that didn't change your mind about playing tuba at all?
No, I thought it was the coolest thing.
Nice. Interlochen seems to come up quite often in our conversations. We were talking to Roger Bobo, and of course, he was the first soloist to win the solo competition at Interlochen,
right.
Which I think turned everybody's head around.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these things seem to happen with the skilled players that do show up as youth.
Well, he did the Vaughan Williams concerto, and I did Flight of the Bumblebee.
That's how the tuba has.
That shows you how highbrow I am.
Yeah.
Harvey Phillips was spent his career bringing the credibility to the tuba. So I'm not sure that would follow his line of thought going from Vaughan Williams to Flight of the Bumblebee. He might have hoped that it had gone the other direction. But you're quite well known now for, before we really get into your background, we'll talk about all that sort of thing, but you've done a good deal of commissioning of really major works for tuba.
A few, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Daugherty concerto turned out really well, and Michael Daugherty likes to brag that it's his best-selling composition right now, overall. So, like, props to the tuba players who all want to play Reflections on the Mississippi. But yeah, I'm super excited about the one that's coming up with Wynton Marsalis. So that's going to be big.
Tell us about that.
Well, everything that is scheduled may or may not change at this point. So I don't know what the status of it is now, but the plan was to workshop the concerto in this next summer, summer of 21, and then premiere it in the fall, like October, November of 21. But who knows at this point?
It might be an internet sensation.
Yeah, I met him at we played his violin concerto with Nicola Benedetti that he wrote for her, and we met then, and I was kind of like joking along. I was like, "Hey, so like tuba concerto's next, right?" And and then he like didn't say no. So I like followed up with his manager and like made sure our like artistic VP was on it. And so I just like kept being like, "Hey, so tuba concerto," and he never said no. So there we go.
Fantastic. Well, how did you get to this spot? I mean, we have up here in Canada, and it didn't make the major news like your appointment did, because it's I would guess you'd say it's the next tier orchestra. But we've had a female tuba player for 45 years in the Kitchener Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jane Noyes, and a fine career. I think she's just now leaving that post. But that was a kind of a remarkable achievement here. But that it didn't, because it's Canada, it didn't achieve the national, or even national, much less international attention. But yours certainly did. I mean, the papers just went crazy when you won the audition for two reasons. Just your age itself would have been noteworthy to join a symphony orchestra. How old were you when you won the audition?
I was 20.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of. I think the only one younger would have been maybe Sumner Erickson back in the day. He was 17 when he went to Pittsburgh.
Well, the kid who just won Milwaukee, I think, is 18.
Oh.
I don't know.
Jarrett, is this bad news? Jarrett, you're getting kind of old.
Yeah, I know. I should just hang up the skates now, shouldn't I?
I don't know. Boy, once you pass that.
Is that a Canadian hockey joke?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did anyone notice that? That was a Canadian thing. Chuck, you didn't say anything. Come on. Canadian brass? Like this is supposed to... Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
So was it Interlochen? What is it that pushed you, really kept you motivated and kept you aimed at the goal? Was it the Interlochen experiences or your high school teacher? There's always some reason somebody is motivated.
Yeah, I think Interlochen is largely responsible. I mean, it was just so formative for me as a human being. I mean, like, I didn't have many friends as a kid, I guess. And so, like, going to summer camp, and, like, I was just talking with my boyfriend about this. Like, you get to experience yourself in a different place, like when you do sleepaway camp, right? Like, you can sort of explore your own identity that way. And I think that was really important for me, and I happened to be at an arts camp. And so I went there for summer camp from 9 to 14 years old. And then I found out about the year-round academy. And just like having that boarding school experience, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of Americans hear the phrase boarding school and they like think of some like strict British people who like, I don't know, get spanked all the time, but like it wasn't like that at all. I loved my experience there. Like, it was so nurturing, and it's like if any one person was in their normal public school, they would have been like the weird theater kid or the weird band nerd, or like, but because we were all in the same place, we related to each other in that way, that we all had something that we were passionate about and excited about. And like, because we were all in that same headspace, then that was cool to be into what you were doing. And I think that made a huge difference. And and my teacher, Tom Rigabono at Interlochen, was huge. He's great at like sort of like gently warping the minds of young people into like being really efficient and working hard. And so he like the friendly competition stuff was good. And then that carried on into my experience at Michigan. Like the studio that Fritz Kaenzig had was so great, like was the reason why I chose to go there. I wanted that sense of healthy competition around, and you know, I saw that all his students were winning jobs left and right, and I just had a really pleasant experience when I visited. And one of the guys in the studio like helped me find a practice room, which is impossible at every school I know, but it was just that sense of unity of the studio, but at the same time we're pushing each other. So I don't know, I just feel very fortunate in like all the environments I was in.
We'll talk about Fritz in a little bit, because his name does come up quite often with people that have very successful careers. But the Interlochen, my colleague now, Caleb Hudson, was also a 2-year graduate of the high school program there, and he's nothing but great things to say about, as you do, the same experience. So it's interesting for me to hear that again from a professional of your ability and quality to be so positive about that experience. Did you know Byron Hanson? Did you get to know him well when you were there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
I
Byron.
played picnic with him.
Oh, great. Well,
Yeah.
Byron, way back in the day, Byron and I, if you could picture the Eastman Wind Ensemble in the back row, there was Byron he was the first baritone, and me playing tuba, that we sat together. You can't imagine two personalities more different. But he kept me from going off the rails.
Can I tell a quick Byron Hanson story? We used to call him the Walking Groves Music Dictionary.
Exactly.
He knows everything about music. And he's amazing, like pianist, and like we didn't really know firsthand that he played euphonium in school. But what happened was, I think this was my sophomore year, when like our euphonium players got sick for some reason. We needed somebody to sit in, and we were playing Shostakovich Festive Overture, which has that killer euphonium part. And he just like wailed, like having not played euphonium in probably years. It was spectacular.
I have a similar Byron story. The incredible talent Ralph Sauer, trombonist, had performed with his later to be wife, Auf dem Strom, and he played the horn part on trombone. It was just miraculous, high range and so touching. And the next day we were standing talking about it, and standing in a circle with Byron, and said, how in the world would Ralph be able to do that drill? And Byron took a trombone and he said, well, he probably, and he played the same thing. Okay, this guy's a mess. At any rate, Byron is a important cog of this. Okay, so you get to the University of Michigan. I suppose your academics must have been high. The universities tend to expect high academic standards as well as musical standards. You can't just float in because you're a great player. So you must also be a whiz at what? Math, science, biology?
I was on math team in high school.
I knew it.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I figured.
I had a math minor for a minute at Michigan, but like the homework was intense. It was hours, like, and yeah, I had to drop it just because of the time commitment.
Mm-hmm. So Jarrett, do you have a similar, not a math background, I guess? Huh?
Well, I did a philosophy double major in my undergrad. But I mean, philosophy degrees and but philosophy degrees and tuba degrees, those are like the same level of uselessness. So I just I decided
to unemployable by both.
Right, exactly. I can't think of two more unemployable degrees, philosophy. And so basically I'm qualified to like sit in the park and think about things and play tuba. That's it.
Excellent.
But so I was going to ask you, Carol, I mean, so this passion was instilled in you like at a very young age at Interlochen. How have you managed to like keep that passion flame burning? Because I mean, you know, you're doing all these commissions and you've got this great nonprofit now, and you're just still doing so many things. So like, what is the thing that drives you to do so many things outside of the orchestra?
I think it's really important that, you know, whatever job you're doing, you don't expect your job to fulfill you. I think you're responsible for your own fulfillment. So like whether you drive a garbage truck or if you know, play tuba, it's like, it's up to you. So, you know, sitting in the back of an orchestra, like, is amazing. Like it's the best job. It's great. But like also sometimes you play Dvorak 9 and like there's room in your head for other things. So that's where the other projects come in, is like when I, you know, write charts for my cover bands, like I have complete artistic control, right? Like that's something that I just don't have at work. So like that scratches that itch. When I teach at Yale, like I'm interacting with people in a way that I don't when I am playing my instrument on stage. Like, so I'd like to have my hand in a lot of different places so that I can sort of scratch those own itches for myself.
People can probably find this story on the internet somewhere, but we had the good fortune, Canadian Brass, we played a double quintet Christmas program with the Philadelphia Orchestra. And one of the finest gentlemen in this business and a wonderful performer is Blair Bollinger. And at that time, he was talking about the Philadelphia situation, the auditions, and how they were basically auditioning all the normal suspects. And he kept suggesting that they had one more person to listen to, and then they'd go on and listen to some more suspects. And he said, there's somebody you really have to hear. Tell us a little bit about that, how that transpired.
So the first audition for the Philadelphia Orchestra job was in the spring of 2005. It was a regular cattle call, as we call them. But, you know, they narrowed the resumes down from like 200 to 60, maybe. And so my resume at the time was basically like, Carol's a junior in college. And so obviously was not accepted. And yeah, so, and I was expecting that, right? So I like didn't really think anything of it. It wasn't until a couple months later, I'm at a Frisbee tournament at Penn State, and I get a phone call from the personnel manager of the Philadelphia Orchestra saying, we want to have you audition. So what happened was I had applied to Tanglewood and didn't get in. So that was my top choice. So I was like, okay, so that frees up my whole summer. And then I saw that there's this this brass festival in Maine that was a week long that had like a later application deadline. So I threw together a tape for that for me, like previously recorded material, like one of which was the Cacciatorian Violin Concerto first movement from a live performance from my like recital that fall. And so I sent this tape into this festival, and the festival is run by Blair Bollinger and our colleague Matt Vaughn. And so Blair heard my tape, and he starts like passing it around the brass section of the orchestra, because the timing was perfect. It was right after they had the no hire, and they were planning an audition for only people who hadn't been at that first audition. So I got to join in on that later that spring. So that's how I got my audition.
Fantastic. That's quite unusual. Yeah.
Yeah,
unusual.
lucky, very lucky.
Because
Yeah.
I've heard of many situations where people actually win an audition and they're turned down because of their age. They say, well, you just don't have the experience. You know? So
No, I feel even more, that gives me panic. Like, I just like to panic.
No, I don't think they can kick you out now, Carol. I think think you have enough experience at this point.
Yeah, 14 years in now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how many years it's been. 14. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any highlights, like, over the 14 years?
Too many to.
Yeah, seriously.
That's too hard a question.
There were two highlights about your playing from my point of view, where I heard you play live, and they were incredible performances. One was just recently, where you played the Largo Factotum with the Hannaford Silver Street Band, basically an English brass band here in Toronto, and you came up to play, and that was marvelous enough. But prior to that, you were at an all-woman brass conference, also here in Toronto, and you played a concerto. You played a piece with the ensemble that was there, and it was fine. I mean, you played wonderful, but the piece was mild. And then you came back for an encore, and you played the Vizzuti trumpet piece, the solo piece.
Yeah.
And it just went crazy. The house went crazy. It was amazing. That's a tough piece for trumpet players. Tuba players shouldn't do that. Especially once they hear you play it, they'll never touch it. It was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Thanks.
So that was those were two really fine experiences, which demonstrated that you have a fine solo touch and career going along with. How did Fritz, as a teacher, I wanted to talk about Fritz a bit, because Fritz and I are a little closer to age. I think I'm much younger than Fritz, but kidding. Fritz, we have a similar kind of background or share a same mentor, the Arnold Jacobs idea. And how did he work with you? Like, how did he, someone of your talent and ability, but also exuberance about the instrument, did you feel that was a good match?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I very much chose the school for Fritz. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Jarrett, do you think we should have Fritz do one of these Tuba Chats one day? Would he ever make himself available to do one of these?
Yeah, I think maybe I could text him and see if he's free at some point. I mean, he's a pretty busy guy, you know.
Text him, see if he wants to jump on the call now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's free. Who knows? Oh! Surprise!
Surprise!
Yeah.
Good reception.
Yeah.
On Facebook, I was going, everybody's stopped there. What's going on?
Nice. Hi, Fritz. Nice to
Hi,
see you.
Chuck. Good to see you. Hi, Carol. Hi, Jarrett.
Hi, Fritz.
Fritz, you have quite a record. Well, two major players coming out that we have to talk about just because they're here. But Carol, and then next generation would be Jarrett.
Oh.
And you probably have another one in the wings. But we won't talk about that. But so Jarrett,
Yeah. These are two problem children here.
I bet. So what is it like working with guys like this?
It's been so rewarding. You know, it's heading into retirement, looking back on everything now is...
Wait, you didn't say that. Let's move on.
Recruitment, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, strange to be heading into retirement in this pandemic right now, but kind of looking back, and people like these two are just why it's been great to be at Michigan for 31 years, and why I didn't leave. In fact, Carol, I tell the story a lot of times, Carol, after I was offered the job at Long Beach, and you said, "Oh, can I come and get my master's there? Because I'd like to check out the scene in LA." And I said, "Oh, I don't think you want to come to Long Beach because the strings are really not good." And I started realizing, wow, why would I want to leave the University of Michigan where I can tell any student, Jarrett, Carol, come here. It's going to be a great experience. Even if you don't stay in music like Kristen Lynn, you know, when your compatriots, Carol, went into statistics, and she teaches at the University of Pennsylvania now, professor there in statistics. And I was so proud. I'm so proud of her, you know, to achieve so much. And how did she fall in love with statistics, being a euphonium performance major at the University of Michigan? It's just, people find their interests here. So, yeah, it's been great.
I think that's pretty instrumental in thinking today too. Is what else can musicians do? How can they take their musical abilities onto other things? Everybody doesn't have to be a professional musician. In fact, we need listeners. We need audience. We need.
Absolutely.
There's so many possibilities. Jarrett, how did you compare your experiences with them? Fritz, it's a big year. If this is your retirement year, there are probably big parties planned, like all kinds of. Not so much, I guess.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, these two were going to be there at the big retirement recital and reception and party on March 8th. After our big...
April 19th.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah.
Jarrett, we should be encouraging people to send in on the Facebook. They can send in their congratulatory. We'll pass them along.
Oh yeah,
remarks,
yeah. We're gonna have some messages.
Questions.
And questions too. Yeah.
Questions like, okay, now what?
Yeah. What kinds of things do you have planned for your retirement, Professor?
Well, I've been doing a lot of dandelion picking. That seems to be kind of absorbing most of my time. I've worked on the berm out by the street last night before rain came today, so I could get most of them out of there. It's kind of embarrassing.
So Carol, from your point of view, once graduating from the school, did you kept constant contact? I think a lot of us, we try to maintain a relationship with our mentors. Unlike singers who have coaches their entire career, those of us who think this through try to do that a little bit and keep these influences in our life.
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, like how do you stay in touch? Who do you look to, like mentoring and reinforcement and so forth?
I mean, Fritz, obviously, although sometimes he can be hard to get a hold of.
Well, especially now, I mean, he has an excuse to not be around his computer anymore. Right? So, yeah.
I'm terrible. I'm just I'm on Facebook, but I never go on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have like a big call like once a year, maybe ish, and I visit Michigan with some frequency. So I'm lucky that the orchestra got to go to Ann Arbor a couple of years ago, and we even did a tubular show there, and in honor of Professor Kaenzig.
Oh, sweet.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Is that the YouTube where you're playing Carnival of Venice, or the? I think some. Were you in the band at the time, Jarrett?
No. So I was in the band when Carol did the Daugherty concerto, with the symphony band, and that was the one time that I was only there for 2 years. But Carol, when you came down and you did a class, and that was one of the best things for me being at Michigan, is seeing like all the different people who had gone to Michigan and they came back with some frequency. So Professor Kaenzig, I wanted you to talk about sort of what you looked for in a student when you were choosing them, because I see all these students that have come out of the studio and they seem like not only great players, but great people. And so how can you like pick these amazing players, but also these great people after meeting them for 10 or 15 minutes in an audition?
Well, thanks for saying that. Ideally, I work with people in lesson situation before choosing them for the studio, and get a feel for what the person's like. But I look at a lot of stuff. I used to try to buck the regulations for allowing people into Michigan, and I realized after a while that it's not worth it. I enjoy working with really intelligent people. I'm sorry, you guys weren't in that category.
It's fine.
We got that straight earlier. These guys seem to be geniuses.
Yeah, both brilliant people. It really makes it so much more enjoyable to work with students who are really smart and get it all the time. So I look for that probably number one. And I'll never forget telling Carol. You've told us more than I have, but across the parking lot in the School of Music, I saw her with a fellow future studio mate, and I said, "Carol, you're not going to break my heart, are you?"
No, you yelled from the parking lot. We were driving away. We were like, "Don't break my heart, Carol!"
So you kind of know when you see special talents. It's pretty obvious. In addition to intelligence, and Jarrett came from a school in Western Ontario, right?
Yeah. Did you look up? Because I'm above you.
Where is that? Yeah, it's up above, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm right above you. Yeah.
And one of our former faculty members recommended him so highly, Betty Yonker, that I thought, wow, she doesn't just say this about anybody. And so I like, wow, this guy could be really something, I think. Just like Carol, the same thing. He's kind of, these are special talents that you recognize when they come through your door.
So Carol, I mean, you do a lot of teaching now too. What kinds of things have you taken from your years of studying with Professor Kaenzig in your own teaching?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to copy the selection process there. Like, I really try to do my homework on all potential incoming students, and like try to meet them as much as I can and talk to all their references and looking at grades as well. Yeah, it's difficult to read based on like you said, select small information, but yeah, hopefully sometimes you just get a sense for the people.
Now, Professor Kaenzig, one of the things that I find the most amazing about your career is that you started out first as being really interested in an orchestral career, but then were sort of just brought into a teaching career, not against your will, but it's just sort of happened. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I played in the Florida Symphony for a year in Orlando. It was one of 21 Ixom orchestras at the time, a major orchestra. And we took over the Miami Phil's season at West Palm Beach. They folded that year, Miami Phil, because their main benefactor didn't like the programming. So he took all his money out, and the Miami Phil folded. They had been a major orchestra. And we filled the void in West Palm Beach and went into our endowment by $80,000. And so the management decided that was a foolish thing. We had a sponsor in West Palm Beach after that year, which was a success. We wanted to become the state touring orchestra like North Carolina Symphony. And the management came back with 1 week less, and they tried to get rid of 26 of us after that season had ended. And 16 of us went, So I was one of those. I was up in Wisconsin with my girlfriend at the time, in Madison, and I called Northern Iowa, where she had applied and she didn't get the job. And I wasn't interested after that. I was going to stay in the Florida Symphony. And so I called up the search committee and I said, is that job still open at Northern Iowa? And they said, well, we've already had our 3 candidates in, but if you want to come at your own expense, we'd be happy to interview you. And I thought, okay, where's Iowa in relation to Wisconsin exactly? And I looked at the map and went, oh, it's right next door. Cool, I can drive there.
Yeah.
So I went over, and at the time my hair was down to my shoulders and my beard was out to my chest. And
nice.
I thought the night before, man, I look pretty freaky. And I trimmed it up like this. And went, oh, that looks good now.
I was kind of wondering if you'd have a quarantine beard, but...
Yeah, I shaved this morning.
So you did have a quarantine beard, is that what you're saying?
I kind of have a 2 or 3 day quarantine beard,
Okay, because I remember you growing a pretty good beard when I was at Michigan.
Have beards. Monica doesn't want me to have one right now for some reason. I don't. So I'm fulfilling her desires.
Yeah, I understand. You're spending more time at home, so you want to keep the domestic tranquility
exactly
a little better.
Exactly.
No, I think that story is amazing, and I just think that there are, my peers and some of the few students that I've had have been so geared towards either a teaching career or an orchestral career, and I think you embody sort of this person that was sort of prepared for anything that was coming your way. I mean,
I kind of thought it was going to be a temporary thing. I thought 3 to 5 years, and I'll get back into orchestral playing. And in that time, I won the Houston Symphony orchestra job twice. Actually, the first time they couldn't decide because the principal conductor, music director got the order mixed up. Second time they announced me as the winner, but wanted to wait to offer me a contract for a little while. And I was so depressed after that I thought, wow, why am I here in the cornfields of Iowa teaching tuba and euphonium? I thought I was going to do something important in my life. And I started thinking after that this is actually a pretty nice place to live, and I enjoy teaching. I've got really good students, and why am I so bummed about this? And doing Grant Park Orchestra for 34 years also was telling, because 10 weeks in Chicago in the summertime was just like fantastic. I loved it. But I come back to Ann Arbor, close to our house along the Huron River on Barton Drive, and it was green and lush, and there weren't sirens blaring, there weren't car horns beeping all the time, and I went, oh, I like this. And it wasn't, when you play, it's all about moi, right? You got to be prepared, you got to practice, you got to keep your chops in great shape all the time, you got to be ready for the first rehearsal, you got to produce at the concert. Everybody expects that. It's not about anybody else, it's about you doing your job. When you teach, it's all about the student. What can you give them, And I started realizing after a while that I love orchestral playing. It's always been my favorite thing to do as a performer. But it only utilized a part of my skills and didn't challenge me intellectually the way that teaching does.
I think your legacy is sealed with people like Carol and now Jarrett. Carol, did you feel, and just because of my interest as well, but did you feel a kind of a connection, the Arnold Jacobs connection through Fritz? I think those of our generation were so totally influenced by the whole teaching concept that Arnold brought. And the teaching concept was basically, don't get involved in the technical, get involved in the music. Make sure it's the song and the ideas in your head. Did you find that connection?
That came up once or twice.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely, yeah. He's my grand teacher, that's what I call him.
My students in recent years enjoyed going, song and wind. It's all song and wind. Everything's song and wind.
Well, we go back far enough that it was wind and song when.
Yeah.
I don't know when that got switched, but.
I decided that was a wrong way priorities. He always talked about the song, but it was wind and song. That's curious.
I'm locked in the past.
Carol, I have a really interesting question in the chat for you, sort of pivoting here, but it's from Christina Kutz. She says, what has been the most important thing you have learned being such an incredible and high-achieving player in a male-dominated field? And how do you feel things have changed for female brass players in the years since you won Philly? Take your time.
Thanks, Christina. It's funny because my ideal for what the future looks like is that this is a non-issue, that we're not even talking about it because it's just they're male and female players of all instruments and it's not even a big deal. I feel that way personally because I'm me, I've never been anybody else. I don't think it's weird for women to play the tuba because I play the tuba, and people, but every interview I ever have, the question is what's it like to be a female tuba player? and it's just what's it like to be a bad journalist? I don't know.
Ooh, mic drop.
I don't usually say that, but I only know my own experience, so I can't obviously speak for everybody. And like I said earlier, I was lucky enough to come through such great atmospheres at both Interlochen and Michigan. No one ever thought it was weird that I was female playing. There were always a couple females in both my studios at Interlochen and Michigan. And yeah, we were the minority, but I don't know, I always felt like it was a meritocracy growing up, that no one ever told me I couldn't because I could do it pretty well. So so no one ever gave me problems. It was actually after I got the job that I started getting weird things happening with people just being kind of too fixated on it. And I don't know whether that's a generational thing, because people my age and Jarrett's age, we just grew up it's you don't have band directors hammering it into us that girls play the girl instruments and guys play the guy instruments. I hope it's not a thing for much longer. I think it's gotten a lot better. I'm seeing a lot more female students. And I try to dispel the notion by just sort of existing and being present. But I don't usually like talking about it that much, because sometimes I feel like drawing too much attention to it furthers the divide, if that makes sense.
You're right about that. I think as your generation ages, it becomes a non-issue. Those of us that are a bit older, in my case, I grew up with a lot of female brass players that were really wonderful, and they would go to all the usual auditions and very often make it right to the finals. Time and time again, get into the finals and never be selected. And there was a definite, I mean, that's why all the rules started coming in place, the behind the screen and all that. And they started telling guys, don't wear high heels. No, do wear high heels. And, yeah, at any rate, so they can't tell who's behind that screen.
There's kind of an interesting story in Grant Park. A woman who became our second trombonist, assistant principal. She's about 6'1", I think, something like that. And our principal trombonist, who's now deceased, didn't want a woman, and he was listening to the breathing. And she had a huge lung capacity because she was a tall woman, and so he got surprised when the screen came down. There's a woman. He's like, oh no! But of course, she turned out to be a great player and a great person in the orchestra. I think too about Connie Weldon always comes to my mind, Carol. When in your case, you think about her career. Then it was a really unusual thing, and she was so brilliant and so talented and so good that you got in Kansas City. And I don't know what the circumstance was around the audition, but that was truly groundbreaking back then. And people have kind of forgotten about her. And when I won the Florida Symphony job, I was freaked out because 2 of the finalists, of the 5 finalists, were from University of Miami. And I went, oh no, these are Connie Weldon students. Oh,
no, nice. Sam Palafian talked so highly of Connie Weldon. I mean, he just found her as a terrific mentor. And you know who another one that no one really heard about, but Arnold Jacobs used to talk about. Apparently, Ren Schilke's wife was a very fine tuba player.
Oh.
And he'd mentioned that several times, that she was actually a contender. But I think she had the means not to have to ever have a real career, so she played in freelance and so forth. But apparently, she was a really fine player.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's been examples, but that would have been the time when it would have been probably impossible for them to score a major appointment. Carol, I'm still curious. You are playing with these very high-powered players, and there's one that we knew very well back when he was a student, Bilger. What's it like working with Bilger, principal trumpet of the Philly?
I love playing with Dave Bilger. It's like, I just feel like his musical ideas are so clear that it's the easiest person ever to play chamber music with, because every note he plays says this is how it goes.
Beautiful.
So it's, for me, I love working with that, that I feel like I can play my part better for having that kind of direction.
We met him as a young player. He came out to the Banff with a group, and he was already a finished artist. He was probably in his late teens by that point. But he was an Illinois graduate, and I think there's yet another connection there. But he came already prepared. He played piccolo trumpet like an artist already, as a so-called student. He was already pro level. So it was also fun to watch that career develop, and then to see you guys together. I thought it would be a great match for our industry.
He just had another baby, or his wife did.
Oh yeah! Wow.
A couple months ago. So getting him to play in a brass quintet these days can be difficult, but when you do, it's great.
I think he was a student at Illinois when I was there.
Yeah, okay.
But it was Ray Sasaki, I think.
Yep.
Wonderful musician.
Oh yeah, very, very, very fine. Very fine. Very pointed. He was already totally pointed in that direction, and that's what you were talking about earlier, Fritz. Is you can tell students that are already on that path earlier on But you're just there to mentor and try not to put roadblocks in their way. Right? Yeah, right.
One of my favorite stories is I was at a conference once, and my students were winning competitions, I think, and somebody came up to me and said, "Are you that good a teacher, or you just get really great students?" And after, well, that's pretty insulting, but okay, I'll answer that question as kindly as I can. I said, well, I try to get the best students I can and not screw them up.
Right. Exactly.
So that's actually a pretty good segue. So today, Professor, I've invited several of your former students into the chat to send some messages to you in honor of your retirement, because I know that didn't happen, and we're all sort of devastated that we wouldn't get the chance to celebrate you. So I wanted to take a couple minutes just to read a couple of these, and I'll email them to you afterwards just so you can see all of them, because there's several. But just starting with a couple, Justin Benavides says, "Thanks for taking a chance on me, Fritz. I've learned so much from you, and I'm forever thankful to have been part of your studio. You are the gold standard." It's a good one. Bernard Flythe, "Professor Kaenzig has been a major influence on me since the age of 23, and I will turn 50 in August. I can't thank him enough for everything he has done for me, and I'm proud to be a part of his legacy of amazing and talented students who have studied with him." And just one more for now, Chris Blaha, he says, "Thank you for 22 years of generosity, support, and encouragement." And I mean, there's like 20 messages in here, so I'll send them to you later. But I just think it's such a testament to not only the caliber of student that you've had in your studio, but also the quality of person that you've had in your studio. And I just think
thank you. It's partly University of Michigan that draws such great students in, and I try to get the best ones I can. I love seeing the interactions, and my final studio was maybe the nicest studio I've ever had, so it was a great way to go out, and everybody stayed true to the end, even went remote on March 11th, and so the second half of the semester we were doing Skyping and Zoom and all sorts of stuff. And it's not exactly the way I thought I was going to finish my career out, but it worked, and people were submitting recordings. We had studio class, and everybody did everything they were supposed to do. So it was really, in spite of its, ending in a pandemic in a weird way, it was a wonderful studio to end with, and it's so many great studios through the years, and I see all these people. I look at my rosters and go, wow. These people were all here at the same time. No wonder they got so good. They're rubbing elbows with one another and hearing, that's how I want to be. That's how I want to do that, So it's really, the students that I've had here, I feel really fortunate to have worked with so many talented, intelligent students who are good people, and you just read from three of my favorites. I say to people all the time, that's one of my all-time favorite students, and I've got a lot of them.
You got a lot. Well, I think this is exactly, Carol, what you represent, the sense that you're carrying on a legacy, and you make it clear that anything is possible, and you give courage. And I did read some of those kind of comments, that you've given a lot of players the courage to pursue their dream, and that there's always a possibility that it can turn out really great. And that's, I think, what you represent.
It absolutely is. I just got to second that. And I can't tell you how many female students, since Carol got her job in Philadelphia, I said, well, do you know Carol Jantsch? Oh, yeah. It's like she's become kind of the poster child for female success in a male-dominated world. But,
is there any truth, Carol, that you're being considered a vice president possibility? You might as well. What's next? Are you staying non-political?
I have to keep it confidential at this point. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very professional of you.
Yeah.
So one question that we ask to everyone who's come on is if they can provide sort of any kind of wisdom or recommendations for students who may be watching this, who may be sort of struggling with something to do at this point with all this sort of extra time they have on their hands. So Carol, starting with you, do you have any sort of advice for things that people can be working on right now during this time?
Well, we did have an event through the Philadelphia Orchestra that is closed now, but so every spring I host what we call the Philadelphia Orchestra Tuba Euphonium Play-In. It's a mass tuba ensemble event where I make the arrangements and we send out the parts ahead of time, and it's like Tuba Christmas, but no Christmas, no $10, and no rehearsal. So we have like 50 to 100 tuba players on stage in Verizon Hall, and it's a really great community building event. And I was going to feature students from my nonprofit this year. So I was really bummed, obviously, that it was supposed to happen in April and it couldn't happen. So what we decided to do is pivot and make what we called the at-home Tuba Youth Play-In. And so my Tubular guys, also Michigan grads, in my cover band, we recorded 3 of the charts and put the sheet music and our videos online for people to play along with. And we asked people to submit videos of themselves playing along, and it was really heartwarming to get some of the messages and videos back. I made a little contest out of it so that the winners of the video competition are getting lessons. I'm giving a full lesson and a couple honorable mention lessons to young students. So it was fun. Doesn't answer your question because the videos aren't up anymore.
Take a second to tell us about your nonprofit.
It's called Tubas For Good. We established it 2 years ago. Basically, I have some friends in town who teach brass instrument, like the public schools in cities. For music programs are sparse at best, and that definitely describes Philadelphia. I was talking to a trumpet player friend of mine a number of years ago, and I was just making conversation. So, do you have any good tuba students? And he goes, "Are you kidding? I don't have any tubas. How am I supposed to have any tuba students?" And that sort of planted the seed. I got some inheritance money from my grandparents a few years back, and used that as the seed money for the foundation. So we basically buy instruments. We have a library of instruments that we loan out to students from the Philadelphia School District. So yeah, we partnered with Yamaha. We have like some really high-end Yamaha instruments, and this year we got a big batch of plastic euphoniums, because the problem in our school district is we were having a hard time, even when schools had instruments, kids weren't playing it because it's a pain in the butt to carry around. So we give them these super light plastic ones that are fun colors. So these 6th graders, they're so adorable. They love them.
Sweet. Jarrett, maybe you could get all the information and put that out, because I think there might be people, hopefully all over the world, that might want to respond to that. That's a terrific idea, of getting instruments into kids' hands.
Really,
Yeah.
well, I remember when you were starting that, Carol, and it's great to hear that it's being successful.
Yeah.
Nonprofit is a huge pain.
Yeah, I bet.
You're inspiring, Carol.
Seeing the little kids with the super colorful euphoniums with big smiles on their faces, it just makes it worth it.
You're an inspiration in doing something like this. It really is. You make me ashamed that I haven't done more stuff like that.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that, Fritz.
Well, Professor, now you've got a lot of time on your hands, so like that nonprofit
Yeah, right.
will start soon, I'm sure.
And Lions first.
Right, exactly.
We know in retirement where all those horns could go now.
Exactly.
Carol's nonprofit. Actually, that's a fantastic way to give back.
Kind of one thing I asked my students to do, the last studio class we had of the year, is just be creative. Do something to keep yourselves engaged creatively, and make music for yourselves. I know, and I've got a couple of students who are in the finals for field band opening for tuba, and they're having an audition. They're good at Scott. I just communicated with Scott. Next round is going to be a recorded round, and then they're going to go do a Zoom finals, which is going to be really interesting. I've never heard of an audition being done that way, but the 2 students I've got would be so great, and they're working their butts off right now. And I told everybody, this is a time to really work on your craft as well as your art, and this is a time you can get ahead. So
Well, Carol, you've got several things going. I know that you keep talking about your cover band. Let's hear about that, because I remember you talking about actually going into a club or a situation where you take your band in, and it's your band, right?
Yeah, we play bar gigs, like just straight up bar gigs. So it's three of my buddies from Michigan. So we're basically a tuba quartet plus drum set, but we also all do vocals. The exciting thing for Tubular is that we have an album coming out soon. We just put in our first round of edits for the first round of mixes, so we're like hopefully weeks away from like you guys hearing on Spotify.
Fantastic.
Hopefully Bohemian Rhapsody is on there.
Do you remember the Catch the Brass Ring? Do you know anything about this? Because I'm old enough to remember, and you wouldn't. Way back, actually before I went to college, it was just about that time. Philadelphia Orchestra brass guys, because they had a wonderful brass sextet, Dave Torchinsky and so forth, and they did a recording called "Catch the Brass Ring," where they took symphonic repertoire but jazzed it up, swung it and played it more interesting. And they gave themselves names. Like Abe Torchinsky became Torchy Jones. And it hit the streets, and people were really excited about this. It hit the streets, and the day it came out, Maestro Ormandy got one of them, and he made him shut it down. They called it back immediately.
He was furious.
A major hit. It seems to me it's time for Philly to redo the Catch the Brass Ring, and who would be better to head that project than Carol Jantsch?
I'll get to work.
More thing to do.
Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, gosh, what a world we're living in. Carol, you've just before you joined, Fritz, I was saying that heard Carol the two times I've heard her play live as a soloist. Just remarkable. The audience reaction, not only my own, but the audience reaction was just crazy. I mean, you set an audience on fire. It's really fun to watch. Not only fun to listen to, but fun to watch the reaction to. And it wouldn't matter who was behind the horn, the way that you play. It just out of this world.
And I got to put Jarrett up a little bit. He does the same thing. The audience is going crazy when you get solo stuff.
Yeah, but he doesn't look half as nice in a dress.
I haven't seen him in one yet. Red heels.
I'm working on my sort of like dress look in the quarantine. So like doing a lot of calf raises and stuff. But so the stiletto look is good.
Well, this has been really fun, guys. Fritz, thanks for joining us. And this is a
great. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you, Carol and Jarrett and Chuck.
Great send off for Fritz and Carol. What you're basically what you're doing for Fritz is amazing. I mean, carrying on the legacy. Teachers are remembered. Teachers have no idea where their reach will maybe end or maybe never end, but you're certainly carrying that on, and it's wonderful what you're doing. Jarrett, final words?
You're both such a big inspiration for me, Professor. I mean, my time with you was invaluable, and Carol, I mean, you're such a role model for me. So thank you so much for existing, I guess. Let's say that.
We'll hope to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks,
Carol. Keep doing what you're doing, and you're for watchers that are not tuba players, and you're just becoming aware of Carol's existence. Go to YouTube, just type in her name. It's not hard to spell. It starts with a J, Jantsch, and there's just one amazing video after another, from riding gondolas to playing in the sunlight, and lots of appearances in front of orchestras and bands and solos. Carol, you're just a great inspiration to all of us. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for bringing Professor Kaenzig too. This was awesome. I want you in all of my interviews from now on forever.
And Chuck, I'll have to say, you've been an inspiration to me as well.
I love this. It's sort of just like a compliment circle, you know? We're like going around the circle. And
Jarrett, what you've done for us all is just nothing, yes.
Chuck, what you've done for us all. Now
Really
you
great.
go down. Okay,
Really,
take care, guys.
Really fun.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.